Big day for Walking Dead fans. This is the second new spin-off of The Walking Dead since the main show ended last year. This is The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, of course, starring Norman Reedus himself. And a lot of questions were in my mind going into this show. I got to admit, before seeing any of the trailers, just the ideas of the shows when they were announced, this show I wasn't necessarily looking forward to as much as, of course, the Rick Grimes show. That's the one I want to see the most. Really curious what they're doing with that storyline and the CRM. They've been building that up for so many years. I had a lot of questions, a lot of skepticism going into this show. I was thinking, can Norman Reedus, Daryl Dixon, can he hold a show on his own? He's a character that's been on television since 2010. He's been through a lot as a character. Is there an arc for him that will carry a show by himself, especially without, of course, Carol there with him? And I gotta say, my answer to that question is, by this first episode, yes, I think he can. And they're setting up an interesting storyline for him, and I'm really curious to see where it goes. But the other big aspect of the show is, of course, the new setting. We're now in France, and that's very different from anything we've seen on the Walking Dead show. What's exciting is the production value, and we're taken away to this new place, and Daryl's kind of the avatar for the audience in exploring this new world. And that's probably one of the best things about it, is this show really takes it back to the Walking Dead's roots from the first season of being a cinematic show first and foremost. This show is not just talk all the time. We get to see the atmosphere. We get to bask in the moment more than we do on other Walking Dead spin-offs. So this show, I think it's exceeding my expectations so far. I really enjoyed this first episode. And another exciting thing is we get new types of zombies, variant zombies. We knew that this was going to be an aspect of the storyline. Granted, in the final season, we got climbing zombies. That was one new type of zombie. But at the end of the World Beyond show, we got a flash forward scene that took place in France where we had a running zombie that seemed to be extra strong. So we got runners, and in this episode they introduce burners. These are zombies that seem to have some type of acidic nature to them where they, just by touching you, can leave a mark on your skin. And even their blood seems to have that same effect as well. You see steam rising when their blood splatters on the concrete. So it's very interesting that we have multiple types of variant zombies, and they seem to be hinting that there are going to be even more types going forward. So we're really hammering home that this is the variant TV show. So, and it really does breathe so much new life into the show, just that we're in a new location. So I think that the setting of France, changing it up, definitely makes a lot of sense. What I don't know if it makes sense or not is, of course, how does Daryl get there? How does that make any sense whatsoever? Why is he tied to a boat? It looks very goofy on first impressions, definitely. I mean, you go back to my trailer reactions, I'm like, what the hell were they thinking with this? How does this make any sense? How are they going to justify this story-wise? And we don't get a concrete answer. We get a couple hints of it towards the end of the episode, so we'll talk about that when we get there. But that's an open question at this point. I will say, if we get to the point where we find out how we got over here and it makes no sense at all, I will definitely criticize it in hindsight. But as of right now, can't judge based on the show as of right now. I'm liking it so far. I'm liking the show. I'm entertained by it. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. But so far, this first episode, Dead City, was a spinoff show with Negan and Maggie. That first episode was pretty strong as well. I think this one's better. I think this one is a bit tighter and has a few less issues. I'm so far liking this show more, and we'll see how that changes as it goes. But with that, we're just going to break into the breakdown now. So we get Daryl washing on shore. Yeah, it looks a little goofy that he's tied to this boat. And it's hinted at the end of the episode that he was he inspired a mutiny on this larger ship that he was on. And then I'm assuming an ally of his that doesn't want him to be killed tied him to that boat and then pushed him out. We'll have to see the circumstances of that. But if you tie somebody to a boat like that, I mean, odds are it's not going to work out too well for them. I mean, the boat's upside down. It's not supposed to do that. It could flip over. You know, a strong wave will flip it over. There could be rocks out in the shore. He washes on shore. You just got to accept that. for this episode to work, okay? He washes on shore. He goes to this little bucket thing, this sand castle bucket, and there's water in it. And here's the first part of the episode. I'm a nitpicker, okay, guys? A lot of people are new people coming into the channel. They don't know that I like to nitpick stuff. I'm a nitpicker here. Don't comment saying he's a nitpicker. I know. We already know. That's the catchphrase of this channel, okay, guys? But he looks in this water, and then he immediately drinks it. My first thought is, if I saw that on the beach, I would assume it was ocean water. And you don't want to drink ocean water. You're going to die. So don't drink ocean water. And he didn't test it first. He didn't sniff it. That's a nitpick, okay? I will definitely admit that that's a nitpick. But I'm already loving the setting. He walks on the beach here a little bit. We see behind him at some point, there's a sign here. You can see it over this car. No dogs, and then there's bikes, and there's a motorcycle in the background. So it's like he's leaving his past self while he's transitioning from his old life into his new life at this moment. He's becoming a new person, you know. And we start off this episode with a quote from Judith, which we come back to another point in the episode where Judith says, "You deserve a happy ending as well." I believe that was the series finale that Judith said that. So that was kind of the seed that they planted at the end of the original series that is Daryl's journey here in this episode. So he basically finds this. I just love the production design, just basking in, you know, everything made up, like, you know, with the vines going up, all of the set dressing that makes it look dated, because, you know, it's 10 years into the apocalypse at this point, 12 years or something. But here's Daryl in this boat that he finds, and it seems a little convenient that there's stuff there still. You know, it didn't get looted or anything, but, you know, he finds what he needs here. He finds a weapon. He finds a bottle of water to drink, and he also finds a recorder. And on that recorder, he learns the story of these people that had the boat, that they're from Ireland. I believe the accent is Ireland. And they're traveling along the shoreline, try to find somewhere safe, and they eventually end up in France. And then I believe the story was that the wife ended up having a heart attack, and then unfortunately the husband had to put her down. And we don't get any closure on that, but it seems like, you know, Daryl's basically, he's thinking about how he had a family back home, sort of. You know, he had friends, he had young children that looked up to him, you know, Uncle Daryl and all that. But he never had a family of his own. That's a theme that keeps coming up at several points in this episode. So it's like, what is Daryl's future? You know, what life does he want to end up creating at the end of the day? So that's one of the major themes, I think, throughout this episode, or throughout this season. This whole season, I think, is going to be about that. You know, there's a young kid that looks up to him in this episode, so that might be his new family, so to speak. And then he records a message, seemingly he's just kind of recording it for himself, for the audience, almost. This is one part of the episode. It just seems convenient so that he has this record of who he is, so people know stuff about him already. It seems like, you know, this is gonna bite him in the butt. You know, at some point people are gonna hear this message and know that he's still alive, based on the end of the episode. So it does seem like it's nice for us, the audience, to have Daryl talking to us, but it doesn't necessarily feel like realistic, I suppose. But at the end of the day, you know, I can understand, you know, he's alone. He needs something to keep him occupied, so I don't blame him for that. But here we got some beautiful walking scenes, and I love it. And then we end up on this, like, flea market type of thing. And here we got a bunch of lurkers. And lurkers, for those who don't know, lurkers are zombies that just kind of stay dormant until they are activated by somebody walking by, and then they go into roaming mode, which most zombies are just walking around. They're called roamers. That's some Walking Dead lore from the comic book. But we don't get to see lurkers as often on the show, so I enjoyed seeing that. And it's a pretty decent fight scene. You know, it's kind of hard to make these scenes filled with tension at this point, because we've seen Daryl kill so many zombies. But I love the choreography. I love the setting of the scene. And the zombies look really cool, because they're the burner zombies. They're something new and fresh that we haven't seen before. But of course, the show's called Daryl Dixon. He's not going to die in the first 10 minutes of the show, so there's no real tension here. But it's definitely a satisfying action scene, and we get this new aspect of the burning skin zombies, which is very exciting indeed. What does that mean? Why are these zombies special? Is it an evolved version of the virus? Or is there, were they made this way? I think that's something we'll find out. You can see steam rising off the blood here. So just getting grabbed by the zombie, you see the steam rising. That's enough to get him burned. And it seems like there could be drastic consequences for these burns. Definitely great visual. And I like these weird veins on the zombies. It's pretty cool, man. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. I'm also curious, my first thought was, what if the blood also burns people? You would think maybe you could treat your knives with this just to have a little extra poison in your weapon. So I don't know. I think if we do something creative with it, awesome. We need something elevated above that other than just introducing them. They got to do something with these guys that makes it unique. But then we get the title sequence, which I think is really, really awesome. Because we got these Revolutionary War French paintings that dissolve and are burning. So that's the burning of society. And underneath, we get zombies. This face turns into a zombie jaw. Here, Daryl's wandering a bit. He's wandering on the road. He's got a book that translates French for him. He comes up on this poster that says, God loves you, or something like that. And he kind of scoffs at it. So Isabel, the other main character, is the one putting these posters up. She's a nun. She's from this group called the Union, I believe. We'll get back to that in a second. But this definitely is one of the major themes of this episode and the show going forward, is Daryl having some sort of faith. He definitely has scoffed at the idea of God and has not been involved in any, of Gabriel's kind of religious stuff. So a lot of this show is going to be about him regaining faith, and it could just be more broadly in faith in humanity, faith in his future, faith in God as well. I think it's definitely broader than just a religious thing. I've always said, in an apocalypse, people, it sounds counterintuitive, but people would definitely gravitate towards religion in tough times. I mean, there's studies that show this in war and desperate situations. People gravitate to faith to save them. They need something that they need a vision for the future, is what it really is. So that's definitely something I believe should be a bigger focus in an apocalypse show, in my opinion, because surviving day to day would be so tough that you really do need that extra push, and there's that old saying, there's no atheists in foxholes, and I think that's stuff they're going to get into in this show. So Daryl here is sneaking around, and he hears somebody outside, and then he gets worried and then backs up over these cans that are used to warn against zombies, right? So there's this string of cans that warn against zombies. We've seen that used as a technique on every Walking Dead show. And Daryl just stepped over it. And Daryl's a very conscious guy of his environment. Showing him kind of trip up over something just because he's scared of just random people, I don't know. I didn't really like that too much. I feel like we should have had something unexpected that Daryl maybe didn't observe before, that he runs into. I don't know. I just didn't like that. But that's a little thing. A nitpick. Again, I'm nitpicking, okay? Calm down, guys. So here we got Mary Bell and this other guy who she pretends is her grandfather. He's wearing blindfolds. He's pretending that he's blind. We find out as the scene goes on. But she speaks English. Daryl comes out. He's like, I don't understand you. She says she speaks English, and she said, "What's crackin', noob?" It's a little bit cringy, but it's just adding a little bit of humor in the show, which doesn't necessarily have a lot of that in it. So I'll let that one pass. A little cringe, but you know what? I had a chuckle about it. It was kind of funny. So we got Maribel here, and at first they seem friendly. They want to trade. Daryl gives them some medicine, and then they give him some apples, and it seems like all is good, but we find out later that's not necessarily the case. The older guy is talking about World War II and how the Americans and the French resistance fought together to push out the Nazis. And I like that element too. And then Daryl returns with there are no countries anymore. So I think that again is kind of like going back to the theme of faith in a way, because countries are, it's an abstract concept. So these abstractions, we don't have literal boundaries in most cases. It's just kind of like an arbitrary thing on a map. So this is something that is kind of dissipated in the apocalypse. It doesn't really exist in the same way, but it doesn't exist because people don't believe in it anymore. That's the thing that makes it's like fiat currency. It has as much value as people put into it, as people believe in it. So that's kind of the same concept here. He says our countries fought together. Daryl says there aren't countries anymore. He doesn't believe in that. So he doesn't necessarily believe in a cause, even though the Commonwealth is kind of a country. It has borders, it has leadership, it has structure. You would think he might actually believe in countries at this point. It's just in a different form than it used to be. So that, again, there's a little bit of substance here. It's subtle, but I'm liking that there's something under the surface. I'm liking that there's an arc for Daryl. Conveniently, the villains show up right now. I don't know what it was, if there was something that drew them here. I don't know why they just happened to drive into here. Maybe I missed something. It seems coincidental. It seems convenient. So I believe what happens here is that the woman Maribel says that he's an American. And I think that based on the end of the episode, these guys are already looking for an American, given Daryl's situation on the boat. We'll get to that in the final scene. But it seems like that's why the conflict starts here. The one of the goons starts pulling away the woman Maribel, and then Daryl feels a need to protect her. He knows something's wrong, so he fights back against the soldier, and basically then Daryl ends up at gunpoint. He's outnumbered. The other guys have more guns, and he ends up getting saved by Maribel. And I just got to point out, I absolutely love the weaponry in this show. Really committing to that kind of Revolutionary War time period weapons, keeping that same aesthetic. I love these guns, man, with the powder, these black powder rifles. Absolutely awesome. That's one of the best things about the show so far. So it really adds to that French aesthetic that I think even the title sequence hinted at, so I think it looks great. It's awesome. And here we got the Maribel and the her grandfather. Turns out he's not the grandfather. He turns out he can see just fine. He lifts up his blindfold, and while Daryl is down, they knock him over the head. And I'm guessing this is because of the soldiers kind of hinting that they wanted to get this American for some reason. They're like, this guy's a liability. We don't want to be around him. Although maybe they just wanted to rob him, take his stuff. I don't know what you guys think. But they do go through his bag and take some of his stuff, but not everything. They leave the recorder for one. So they don't take all of his stuff. They just kind of take what's useful to them, I suppose. So who knows, maybe these guys are just robbers in general and they just like trick people and take their stuff. But I don't know at this point if that's the case. But here we got Isabel turning up. We saw her on the mountain earlier looking down at Daryl. She saw him before, so she was in the area. She heard gunshots and commotions. She comes running and she saves the day. And then Daryl wakes up in this nunnery convent. And they burn his wound. So they cauterize his wound from the zombie. So the burner zombie, if they don't treat it, it will spread, is what the implication was. So I did enjoy that we have Daryl screaming, interrupting their singing, and then they go right back to it. But again, like just the production value, just going to this completely different world that we haven't seen in Walking Dead at all. It's awesome. It's refreshing. So I like that. And here we got the kind of, classic nurse helping the wounded soldiers type of scene. Like I said, they left the recorder, so she already knows that he's an American. She's already starting to speak in English with him. So on this wall, we see a lot of iconography from many different religions, not just the Christian iconography. We also see, we got Buddha here for Buddhism. We got, we got Hindu symbols. We got Taoist symbols here. We got Jewish symbols. We got symbols from many different faiths, and it turns out that they're part of a group called the Union, but they're basically a group of many different faiths kind of banding together to kind of preserve humanity in the apocalypse, of course. Then in that bath scene, we see Daryl's scars on his back. Daryl gives a bit of backstory about how he was abused as a kid, and then Isabel, also has scars on her wrist. So I don't know, usually that's like a sign of suicidal attempts or something like that. So there's definitely a mutual bond there, that they have these old scars, and she even says that the scars are a sign that we've healed from the suffering in the past. So they have kind of that mutual, like, shared history of having a dark past. I like the character Isabel. She's definitely a character who has strength, but also has this maternal kind presence that I think is a good match for Daryl. Somebody who maybe needs a little bit of mothering sometimes. But she's leading him through the facility, giving him a bit of a tour, and then he sees the weapons, and they can defend themselves. I love just the visuals of the swords, and all of that is really cool. And just the fact that they add in a little bit of history, that in medieval times, of course, all these nunneries and stuff would have had weaponry like this. So it all makes sense to me. And then we see Daryl kind of exploring outside a little bit. He gets a meal. The nuns don't look at him. Isabel says they're scared of him, and that is just because, nuns are not supposed to talk to men unless they strictly need to for work. That's just part of their duty to God and the faith. And here we got the Mother Superior, the person in charge. She says that Daryl is not a person of faith. He shouldn't be here. And then Isabel says that I didn't used to be a person of faith either. So she's basically implying that she's going to try to convert him over time. So, and they have a mission for him for some reason. He is maybe the one, whatever that means. So we find out as the episode goes on. And then Daryl's eating his meal, and then there's this kid Laurent across the way, and he is copying everything that Daryl's doing. So I think they press a little bit much on that. They keep returning to each little thing that Daryl does, when we already got the point. He's definitely looking up to Daryl because he doesn't have a lot of men to talk to. He doesn't have any kids his age to relate to. So he is looking for that father figure, and we get that instantly right away. And I like this introduction to this character. He is an educated person. He knows math and science. He knows the capitals of all these countries and stuff. And again, these are abstract concepts. So we keep going back to abstractions. Daryl's not into the abstractions. He likes real things, tangible things that he can manipulate himself. He can touch. He can see. He's definitely a realist in that way. So contrasting him with Laurent, who is more intellectual, is I think a fair comparison, to make. And definitely I think that this kid is likable right away, and I kind of like that even though he has a bit more maturity, he does still act a little bit like a kid. He starts the conversation kind of awkwardly. He gives Daryl a Rubik's Cube and says, "Your turn," or something like that. That's something a kid would do. And a lot of the other dialogue is dialogue that could be given to an adult, So I like that balance of he's mature for his age in terms of what he knows, but he still has a bit of that childishness to him. So I think that it's going to be important to maintain that going forward, that he doesn't just sound like an adult, But again, we've had this a little bit in the show already, in the franchise rather. The show World Beyond, a lot of that hinged on, oh, there's this girl named Hope, and she's supposed to be this genius child. So that's it's repetitive, but we're doing something different here. Then we go to Maribel and her grandfather again on the road, and here's another part where I gotta nitpick a little bit. And so we got these soldiers, right? These soldiers that seem to be everywhere at all times, or just whenever it's convenient for the story. They seem to drive on the roads. They have these trucks. So I would think if I was these people, and I'm not part of that group, I'm not affiliated with the soldiers, I don't want anything to do with them. If that was that kid, if I was in that situation, I would avoid walking on the roads as much as humanly possible. So the main antagonist here steps out of the truck, and his name is Cordon, and he is looking for his brother, Michael, who was one of the soldiers who was killed previously. So that's the starting incident here that gets Daryl in trouble, and he shows that he's brutal, he's tough, he's punching the old man because the old man lied to him, basically. And then Maribel lies as well and says a man was trying to rob them. And then the soldiers came about, so she's not telling the truth either, because if she did tell the truth that she killed one of the soldiers, she would get killed right away. So she's in survival mode. The old man ends up dead. Cordon kills him. And I think it's a little over the top. I guess you want to show that he's kind of evil right away. I personally prefer a bit more nuance, that we don't just have villainous mustache twirling, where you can see a bit more of their side and understand what they're doing. But, it's a recurring theme on Walking Dead at this point, so that's a nitpick as well, honestly. So here we got Daryl. He's trying to pick this lock, because behind this door is an office for the priest that used to live here, and there's a radio in there. Daryl wants the radio for some reason. There's somebody he's trying to contact. I'm assuming that he's not trying to contact people across the continent, because that wouldn't make sense. The radio wouldn't go that far. I'm assuming that he knows people here that can help him, or so he thinks. So he has a specific goal in mind, and even earlier on the boat, he had he had a map, and he was like tracing, I need to go here, on the map. So it really seems like he knows a bit more. He knew he was coming to France. He knew that he knows some people here. He knows or has an idea where he can get it on a boat. He seems to know more than he's letting on about a situation. And then here, the kid Laurent, he's supposed to be reciting poetry. So the priest Pierre Jean is zombified, and they are keeping him alive still. So Daryl, I'm sure, is thinking back to the farm when all of the zombies were kept in the barn. Daryl's not down with that. He doesn't like just keeping this threat around. He doesn't like this idea that he can be resurrected in some way, or that prayers are going to save him. He rejects all of that. So this is a part where Daryl definitely makes sense. So this is kind of the turning point where Daryl's like, I want to get out of here. I don't trust you guys. I like that Daryl is against helping them at first, and that he has to be kind of lured into it. So here is the mission for Daryl. Is Daryl supposed to be the messenger who delivers Laurent? They want Laurent to be the new Messiah to lead humanity. So I don't know if this is like the rebirth of Jesus or something. I don't know where they're going with this. But the new Messiah, that's not just like the leader or something like that. That's like a religious figure. So I don't know exactly what they're going with that, but it's definitely intriguing, I think. But like the question is, what's so special about this kid? Who are his parents? I don't know. They need to do some work to justify that. But giving Daryl a mission, again, it does feel a bit derivative of The Last of Us, which came out this year as well. Just the whole idea of the main character has to deliver another character who's kind of the savior to a certain location, and I'm sure there's going to be twists and turns along the way. So that, again, it's a bit derivative of that, but I think it's different enough that I can't say it's like a ripoff. If it turns out he's immune, then it'll be a different story. But we're looking at a map here that shows where we're supposed to go. They have outposts along the way, people they can trust and rely on. That's something Daryl doesn't have. Cordon goes back to where his brother died. He finds his brother zombified. And just another little nitpick is the zombie seems a little bit too aged. He looks a little bit too degraded. He should look a little bit more fresh. But again, the rules are different now. We got different variants of zombies. Maybe the decomposition happens faster now. Also, I just realized in the editing process that they are definitely in this scene trying to draw a parallel between the main antagonist, Cordon, and Daryl. Of course, Daryl also saw his brother Merle zombified in a similar scene like this. So giving the main antagonist the motivation of the lost brother in a similar way is definitely related. They also kind of conveniently find a slip of paper, the God loves you thing, so that they think that it was Isabel that was there. Now, I don't know that I would jump to straight like, oh, she was definitely here, because those posters are everywhere. It could have just been hung up and then it gets blown down, or somebody took it with them. But I suppose you can connect the dots, but it is very convenient. Daryl is leaving, and then the soldiers drive the other way. Daryl stays because he knows that those guys are bad news. So, and I think Daryl might also know who this group is, given the end of the episode. He might know already that they're looking for him. He might feel responsible for this in a way. So we see the nuns arming themselves, and then they let the guys in because they're going to get in somehow anyways. So they're trying to play nice at first, but they're looking for Daryl, and they hide the kid away. And then here, the kid waits to lock the door until the bad guys are right outside. And I guess he's a kid, so he can make mistakes and stuff, but it does seem a little bit dumb. I think it would have make just as much sense if they spot the door there and then they're like, this door's locked, we need to get in there, because they're probably hiding people in there. They might be hiding Daryl in there. That would make sense. They didn't need the lock thing to be there for that to work. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But again, another little nitpick. So the priest zombie is again kind of a thorn in their side. The bad guys threaten to kill the priest. I like that they have this element here where this soldier knows this priest. He's gone to that priest for confession. So he is connected in some way, and that kind of justifies how this nunnery has been allowed to exist. The fact that these soldiers, they know these people, they're part of the community, so even though they're part of a resistance, they are on the surface, connected with the soldiers. So, I think that is smart writing. It adds a little bit of depth. And then Daryl shows up right in time because the kid, he feels attached to the zombified version of the priest. And then Daryl shows up as they are lunging for the kid. That's when the fighting starts. Couple nitpicks with these action scenes, although, it is brutal, and seeing the nuns get blown away, I just instantly feel bad, They're devoting their lives to what they believe in and, being peaceful and loving and all that stuff. So you just feel bad when they get hurt, right? But part of me is like, okay, they had guns in the armory. Well, why doesn't even one of them come out with guns? Because we got the other guys have guns. Nitpick again, but I definitely would have grabbed one of those guns. Even though you're only going to get one shot off, still, it feels like it would have been necessary. So Daryl is getting chased by Cordon, and they have a final showdown here, kind of one-on-one. And then Isabel has to come in as well and join Daryl and save him. And then Daryl basically chases Cordon out. He manages to shoot him in the shoulder, doesn't hit him for good. And then as he's running out, the Mother Superior, who is mortally wounded at this point, she begs for Daryl to show mercy to Cordon. So that's going to be a major theme as well, I think, is that line between showing mercy and what does it mean? Like, will that put you in greater danger later? Because obviously Cordon is not going to stop chasing Daryl. So if he did manage to get to him, he would have been able to finish that off and hopefully prevent violence down the line. The Mother Superior ends up dying here, and just seeing the violence, the aftermath, it's a sad sight, because this was such a thriving place. They were growing food. I like to see how they were sewing clothes, it looked like. So I liked that little world that they built, and now it's completely destroyed, all because of Daryl, and I think he probably feels a little bit of responsibility here. But he totally messed up so many people's lives in this episode here. So here they're having a campfire outside the convent, and they're, just mourning what they've lost. And it's a nice scene as well. The other woman here starts singing, and it's a mournful tune, and I think it's a beautiful tune. But just as a nitpicker, I'm like, okay, the guy got away, the other soldier got away. Would they really want to have a campfire right now, considering that could draw attention to them? And even we cut to the guy Cordon outside, and he is looking on at the light from the fire. So he is aware of where they are. Not very smart, but again, nitpick, I suppose. But I do like here Daryl's is agreeing to go on this journey with them. Here we're getting a little bit of a hint at what Daryl did on the boat. So there was this boat that traveled presumably from America over to France. And here we got a woman in charge here who, I don't know if she's meant to be part of the CRM. There's no confirmation here. But she looks a lot like the main antagonist of the World Beyond show, so I think there is a connection there. Are they just affiliated with the CRM, or are they part of the group? Who knows? But they definitely look very similar. We got a group that's well equipped, better equipped than the soldiers we've seen in this episode. They have like machine guns. They don't just have black powder rifles, and they got armor on them. So I'm really curious about that. Basically, there was a mutiny on the ship. This guy was the captain, and prisoners escaped, and they're talking about experiments, and there are test subjects involved, and there's a scientist here who says the research was ruined, but there are still some test subjects, and there are zombies passing by behind them. So again, they're doing experiments with zombies, and maybe that is the CRM, because we know that they do experiments with zombies already from that show. And also the fact that there are different types of zombies here, variant zombies, that would give them a reason to come over here. They have to go here to get these variant zombies so that they can learn and understand, because the CRM is trying to wipe out all of the zombies in the whole world. Or maybe they're trying to keep them as some form of biological weapon against their enemies. Maybe both. So it's hard to say, really, if they... I'm leaning towards they are CRM, especially since we got that Rick show coming up, and everything is going to, I think, mold together. It's really... We got different spinoffs, but I think they're going to all end up connecting in some way and have big crossover event. I think that's what we're building up to, and that'll be kind of like the real ending of The Walking Dead. Whereas the original show, that was just kind of the end of that aspect of the storyline and start off a new storyline. So I've long since said that wasn't the real ending. So I think we're building up to something here. But basically, this captain here gets blamed for the mutiny and the prisoner escape. And they don't show him actually dying, but it seems to be implied that they're going to blame him for that and put him... give him major consequences. Presumably they just kill him right away. So let me know what you guys think of this show. Let me know your theories on, is this CRM? What's going on here? How do you think Daryl ended up here? Let me know your theories. We're going to break down that trailer in a separate video later this week. But I'm excited for the show. I went from being a skeptic to a believer in the show, much like how Daryl's going to throughout the season. So hopefully they maintain this quality and we have a full season that's as awesome as this was. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And with that, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.